Need to get my chapstick. Hello. It's down there in my purse. Hello, hello. We will wait for some people to hop on. I can find it. Thank you. Because, I mean, what would a live stream be if we didn't have chapstick, people? You got to have a little bit.
Okay, I got the notification.
Thankfully, for Christmas, I got a ton of chapstick because people do know my heart. Let's be honest. Lotion and chapstick are the way to my heart. I don't know what Krista's doing. She's doing something. Oh, there we go. I appreciate that.
Encourage people to say.
All right, Kathy Lou. Yes, girl. Yes, yes. You got to have on these winter months. Create winter lips in South Africa. There's something actually called winter lips, and it's like, yeah, I can't really explain it, but they talk about winter lips in South Africa. I've been waiting for y'all all day. Hey, Rachel, how you doing? What's up, Mike? What's up? Yes. Yes, yes. We are, well, I am glad to be here. Chris is just standing right there in the background. What's up, David? How goes it? Marsha, yes. Lotion, lotion, lotion. Yes, yes. I feel no, yes. I do. I do. Because you actually had me watch the Brady Bunch. Yes. Okay. Yes, I do. Yes. Hey, Candy, my favorite Canadian cousin. What's up, Jeremy? Sunny Chicago. That sounds nice. All right. You guys, I can learn how to do it. What's up, Deborah? Great to have you here. We're gonna jump in. You guys, please keep praying for Krista and me. Let me lower this a little bit so I'm not like looking so far up. Please keep praying for us, for our health. We are just still fighting, still getting through it, and yeah, eventually I will share the testimony of what has led to 5 weeks. Hey, Antonia. It's normally Wendy, Antonia. What has led to 5 weeks for me, hey Darren, of sickness. And so I'm kind of over it. I am ready to be well. I think Krista would say the same thing. She is ready to have me be well. So looking forward to that. So yes, I'm thankful. I hope you guys are all doing well. And thank you for joining me, Jason. Hello. Some of my favorite people here. Hello, hello. All right, you guys, we're gonna jump in. Because after this live stream, I have to drive to the pharmacy. So I'm gonna keep it going. I wanna talk about, and you know what? I was gonna start out with talking about a Twitter article, but I think I'm gonna start out by talking about a verse in Ephesians and just the book of Ephesians itself. I love the book of Ephesians, and I love the one of the like sub narratives that threads through the book of Ephesians, which is how do we do community together? How do we live together? And you can see this thread in the first part of Ephesians when it actually calls us by our name. Like, what is the grounding for our togetherness, for our unity? And that's the fact that we are all adopted. It was to his good pleasure that we are adopted, that he has taken down this dividing wall, which has now allowed us to come together in our togetherness. Like Paul is really setting up the groundwork for this togetherness. And then we move through and he really lays out, well, how do you do this togetherness? How do you do it? And we see this in Ephesians 4. And I'm just talking about this because this is what I was literally just reading before I came on, before Krista came in my room. Hey, Kimba. And so as we look at the groundwork for our togetherness, we get over into sorry. I can't just keep going. You over here. We get over into if y'all can see her right now, don't judge me. We get over into Ephesians 5 and Ephesians 6, And it's unfortunate that we have the chapter break of Ephesians 5. To me, if you were to look at Ephesians 4 and just read Ephesians 4 right through to Ephesians 6, there doesn't really need to be a chapter break. It's all just this one good thing. I wish, can you have my Bible, please? There should be a Bible maybe up there or down here. But when we get to Ephesians 6, he's continuing to talk about the community, but then he talks about the family being the foundation for our society. So Paul has spent a lot of time talking about, like, look, this is who you are. This is how you as a person do unity, how you live with one another. And then after he lays and establishes this is how you live with one another, he then breaks it down into the family. This is how you live together. And he talks about the husband and wife, and then he talks about the children. How do you live in your family as the foundation for society? But when we get to, sorry, give me 1 second. When we get to Ephesians 6, it talks about putting on the whole armor of God. Now, the bigger picture in Ephesians, a theme of power, the power that we have in Christ, the power that is available to us as Christians. But it tells us in Ephesians 6, it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. And when it says to put on the whole armor of God, this actually harkens us back to something in Ephesians 4. And Ephesians 4, I think it's 22, where it says to put off the old self, to put on the whole armor of God, to put on the ways of God, the ways of Christ, the it's almost like the being renewed. Like, we're going to put on the new thing, but in order to put on the new thing, you also have to put off the old. And so he's saying, put on the whole armor of God, that you may stand against the schemes of the devil, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces in the heavenly places. And then it talks about the armor of God, taking up the whole armor of God and things like that. And just right before, as I was sitting down to prepare, what I was going to talk about on the family meeting today, this verse, Ephesians 6:12, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. That just popped into my heart. And I was going to close with it, but I decided I would start out with that, because I think it's important for us to remember that we are physical beings, and yet there's a very real spiritual world and spiritual realm in which we also interact with. And that as we see things happening within the church, as we see, sorry, I don't know why my phone keeps going off.
Our family is,
as we, I think here, if you just turn that off, as we notice or hear rumors of church splits and people leaving denominations and people deconstructing and things like that, may it draw us to pray. May it draw us to fight the spiritual fight, to be on our knees and be in prayer for, those who may be leaving the faith, who may say, I'm going to deconstruct, or, I'm going to go this progressive route, or white people really just need evangelism, Black people don't. I think it's my iPad. And I don't know how to turn it off, so maybe just take it out. I don't know. When we see these things, when we hear these things, we have to be reminded to pray, because that is our battle first. We must be reminded to pray. We must understand that even though things get on our nerves, even though we might want to, and y'all, when I say I'm a physical kind of girl, I'm a physical kind of girl. So when people get on my nerves, when people come for us, or when things happen, and it just feels like, 2022 is just now starting out, and all of these crazy things are happening, our battlefield is in prayer. When we hear about our kids or our friends' kids, like in my case, deconstructing and leaving the faith, our battlefield is in prayer. When we have parents who are weary, and we just heard a story of this yesterday, when we hear parents who are weary from children who have canceled them and things like that. Well, how do I support you? I first support you in prayer. I first, and I know it might sound cliche, it might sound uber Christiany or whatever. You can take it how you want. The reality is that when we read Ephesians, we should understand that we do have power in Christ. And that when we get to Ephesians 6:12, we're told that we are in a very real fight, and that we should be fighting first in prayer and on our knees. So I just wanted to start out with that, and to just to encourage you, like we do have a very real battle that we are engaged in, but we also do have a very real help. Um, and so, as January continues, we're just in the first week of January. We are praying for you. We will be praying for you, because we know that some of you guys are all of us, if we proclaim the name of Christ, there is a spiritual battle. But I know that some of you guys are feeling it, in ways that others aren't, in very difficult, real ways. And we just want you to know that you are in our prayers. So I wanted to start out with that. So yes, Darren, people canceling their parents left and right. Parents getting the cancel for real. Oh, sorry. You know what? I'm gonna be better about it. I'm gonna. Yes, I am. I'm gonna be better about. See, she told me I'm not gonna be better about it. Like, I got a real fight right here, y'all. Goodness gracious, people are canceling their parents. We heard a story yesterday of a woman whose kid, a few of her kids have deconstructed, or living in ways that are not in line with historic Christianity. If you go and listen to some of the testimonies that we did over the end of year season last year, you can hear the testimony of a couple, and they were counseled by someone dear to them. And so it is real. And I just wanted to take time out to say, you know what, we see you in the reality of, the pain. We see you in the reality of, the angst that comes with being canceled, especially being canceled by someone who is very, very real, or like very, very dear to you. Do you have insight on this younger generation canceling family members? There's no agree to disagree. No, there is no agree to disagree. Part of that is the redefinition of the word tolerance. So tolerance used to be, you can be over here and believe this and say this, and I'll be over here and believe that and say that, and we can be cool. If I see you in the hallway during coffee break or lunchtime, I can say hi to you. We can be okay. We just know that we agree to disagree. I'm gonna tolerate you. I'm not gonna shame you. I'm not gonna dehumanize you. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. You don't agree with me. That's fine. Whatever. Now, tolerance is you must agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, you are intolerant. Tolerant is complete agreement. And when people feel like someone doesn't completely 100% agree, affirm, stand behind them, celebrate, yes, all of their lifestyle choices, whether they are antithetical to the gospel and to Christianity or not, if you don't celebrate all of that, then you are traumatic. You are dehumanizing to me. You don't support me. And then it runs the whole gamut. And now that is emotionally abusive. And I got to cancel you because I have to protect my peace. I have to protect my mental health. So this word trauma is getting thrown out left and right, and everything is traumatic. Not sure if anyone else is seeing this, but it gets very, very thrown, like the word trauma gets thrown around, and everyone is traumatized by something. So that's kind of what that's about. Praying for those families so hard. Yes, please be in prayer for them. I'm assuming this kid is paying rent, because there is no way I could have canceled my Jamaican parents. Not an option. Girl, I wish, like, if I would have even had a thought in my head that I was gonna cancel my mama, she'd be like, I heard your thought. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, no. in many of the cases, they are kids who are like in college and have, received like alternative kind of education in college now, and or from professors, even at Christian institutions, from professors who uphold a worldview that isn't in line with historic Christianity. Now, some of these parents continue to pay their tuition bill of their child who has canceled them. I have many questions about that, because you cancel me, honey, I'm canceling my credit card. That's the first thing that's getting can. You ain't gonna cancel me and I still pay. The devil is a lie. But I'm also not a parent, so I have to also understand that with Grace Novella and my cousin Novella. And I just talked today about how now words are considered violence and disagreement is hate speech. Yes. Yes. Your words are violent. If you disagree with me, you are participating in hate speech. You're hateful. You're not a Christian, because Christianity is just basically boiled down to kindness. Kindness is the new righteousness. So everything in society right now, I don't know if you've seen it like at Target, everything is be kind. Be kind. Yes, but what is your definition of kindness? How are we measuring this kindness? Is it a biblical view of kindness? Because we can look at things in scripture where I feel like, yes, I am told to be kind, but I can also look at you where I'm told to snatch. And I don't believe that the Bible goes against each other, so there has to be something kind about snatching. But we don't want to talk about that. Everything just need to be, we just need to be kind. Kind. No. Okay. All right. Let me see here. Well, I was trying to look at what the people was saying. Darren says, actually heartbreaking. I definitely know deconstruction is real and almost like the hip thing to do now. Yes, it is. It is the hip thing to do, to be progressive, to be affirming, to be kind. Yes, y'all, if y'all looking for me to be kind, it's a different kind of kindness. I mean, the Lord, I'm a work in progress. We'll just say that. Definition of kindness, rewind. Full affirmation, or you're intolerant. The new word that I hear, emotional violence. Yes, emotional violence, trauma. Those things all kind of linger together in this same bubble of society basically dictating to me how I need to behave, how I need to think, what I need to accept, my definition of love. I no longer get I no longer have the room or allowance to get my definition of love from the scriptures. I must use the definition of love that is offered to me by the culture. And y'all, Christians are just running along behind it, just prancing all behind, honey. We need to accept this definition of love, because we need to be kind and Christ-like and be loving and affirming. The devil is a lie. Don't be letting nobody trick y'all into that. Don't do it. Asking for kindness without a worldview is to even justify the necessity of kindness.
That's Eric Muldrow.
That is Eric. Okay, so we're gonna go on. I'm getting my cue. Why does it keep saying that?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, my glasses are dirty. The first thing that I want to bring up today is the situation that's happening in New York with their DA Alvin Bragg. And my cousin Eric might be able to chime in here with his thoughts. Put him in the chat about policing. Now, and if you don't follow Code Red Conversations with Eric Muldrow, Eric is an ex-military, ex-police in Vegas, and he puts out really good content about what's happening in policing. So run, and when we're done here, not before, follow Eric Muldrow at Code Red Conversations. So the DA, Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, has now said that he's not going to be prosecuting nobody, y'all. You can go to Manhattan and act a fool. You can just wow out in Manhattan. You know what he said? He said, we just going to turn the other cheek. We just going to look the other way. Why? Because there's too many black folk in prison, apparently. This is my paraphrase. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. Manhattan's new DA has ordered his prosecutors to stop seeking prison sentences for hordes of criminals and to downgrade felony charges in cases including armed robbery and drug dealing, according to a set of progressive policies made public on Tuesday. I said, well, my goodness gracious. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, says, assistant district attorneys must also now keep in mind the impacts of incarceration, including whether it really does increase public safety, potential future barriers to convicts, including or involving housing and employment. See, if you rob me, I don't care if you get a job. This is why I said I'm a work in progress. Y'all got to pray for me. The financial cost of prison and racial disparities over who gets time. And then the last thing I want to highlight about this is, let's see, where is it at? Assistant district attorneys should use their judgment and experience to evaluate the person arrested and identify people who suffer from mental illness, who are unhoused, who commit crimes of poverty, or who suffer from substance abuse disorders. Charges should be brought consistent with the goal of providing services to such individuals, and leverage during plea negotiations should not be a factor in this decision, he wrote. So I feel like if you got the spirit of wild outness in your heart, New York, with Manhattan would definitely be the place to be. But what does this mean biblically? How do we think about situations like this? Don't even get me started on this foolishness. I know. I'm just saying. But how do we think about some of these things biblically? The first thing I want to talk about is, what is the definition of biblical justice? Like, when we look at justice, part of the definition of justice is to be impartial. That justice doesn't show favoritism. Justice doesn't look at, someone and say, well, this person is housed, they have two parents, they're in the majority culture, and they rob someone, so they get to go to jail because, but this person over here who only has one parent and is in a minority culture and maybe didn't graduate from high school, well, he robbed someone, they committed the same robbery basically, but we're gonna let this one off because he has these other social ills. That isn't justice. That isn't how we handle justice biblically. This is man's version of justice. Man will create something, put his little clay piece together and be like, what is justice? And Krista told me something earlier this week that we'll never see true justice this side of heaven. And it's so true because, and I think this is a great example, because people come in with their own thoughts and their own reasons. What would be the reason to treat people unfairly? What would be when is there any biblical warrant? Maybe there is, to treat someone unfairly, to say, well, we're going to do this with this person, but not that with that person. But when I look at the situation in Manhattan, I look at what are the implications now of saying you can, as long as no one is shot and killed, you can participate in armed robbery. And we're not going to offer you a hard sentence. We're going to, give you a very light sentence, only up to a year in jail. I think it's 364 days in jail and potentially $1,000 fine. And part of that reasoning being, well, because of ethnic disparity. Well, I think another question to ask is, well, what is the cause of the ethnic disparity? Is it that more Black people are out, committing violent crimes, committing robberies, and doing all of those things? If that is the case, then maybe we need to have other conversations. But to say that you now just don't get punished, there's no punishment because of the color of your skin is not a biblical principle. When we look at thieves, dishonest scales are detestable to the Lord. Yes, I completely agree. When we look at the scriptures, there are a ton of scriptures that talk about thievery. If a thief is found while breaking into a house and is struck down and dies, and I say, if you break into my house in the middle of the night, break into Eric Muldrow house. See, I don't want to see a thief break into Eric Muldrow house or Mike Davis house in the middle of the night, and definitely not Kathy Lou's, because I know these people. Okay, I'm sure that they will pray for you once they're gonna pray for your healing. Okay. But it says if a thief is found while breaking into a house and is struck down and dies, it is not a capital crime in that case. And they're talking about if it happens in the night. Okay, it is not a capital crime. But if the sun has risen on him, then it is a capital crime in that case. So if you can see the thief, we don't kill thieves necessarily. But if I'm sorry,
you got that backwards.
What?
If he comes in at night,
that's what I'm saying.
If he is a capital crime.
No, if he dies, I'm talking about the person who kills him.
Yeah, it's not a capital crime.
That's what I said. It's not a capital crime. So if a person breaks into my house, I have the right to defend myself,
to defend your house,
to defend my house. It's the nighttime. But if a person breaks in the daylight, what the scripture is saying is that you don't kill a thief. Okay. Now we're not talking about if the thief comes for your life and your family and self-defense. That's different. But it does say a thief is certainly to make restitution, but if he has nothing, he is to be sold for his theft. If what is stolen is actually found alive in his possession, whether an ox, a donkey, or a sheep,
he still got it.
If he still had, to me, I was just thinking to me and myself, I was like, well, if he's still holding my dinner, because that just sounds good, then he is to repay double. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his hunger when he is starving. Okay. So we're told how we participate with thieves. Yet if he is caught, he must repay sevenfold, though it cost him all the wealth of his house. So there is punishment for stealing, even though the scriptures tell me in my heart as the person, as the victim, how I am to participate and what my role and responsibility is. It doesn't take away the responsibility for the thief.
Here's what Mike Davis says.
Yes, I will pray for you afterwards. That's all I'm saying too. That's all I'm saying. Don't come up in my house in the middle of the night. All right. And I mean, we can go through the Old and the New Testament in regards to thievery. In Romans, it says it says, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew talks about stealing. Stealing is a big deal. It's not something that's just swept under the rug in the scriptures. Now, when we look at justice, there is justice that is due for the person who has been stolen from. There is also justice that is to be due to the person who steals. So we want to make sure that we are still weighing things out equally. Just like I said a little while ago, we don't kill a thief. If it's broad daylight and I see the thief, and I'm not just going to run down the street, mow him down. I'm not just going to run after him and kill him, because the word also gives instruction for how we treat criminals. God has a justice plan for humanity. And yet we still must, which I feel like New York or Manhattan is failing to do, is to look at, well, what does it mean to justly treat the victims of the criminality, the victims of the thievery, the person who is now upheld at arms. Part of the article goes in and talks about the trauma that can happen to a criminal. Well, what about the trauma that can happen to me as a victim? How are we handling some of these things? This reminds me of when I lived in South Africa. When I lived in South Africa in the townships, if a child is raped, many times those, and gosh, even outside of the townships, rapists linger in the community with their victims. And so now if I'm walking down the street and I'm the victim, I might roll by old Charlie and we just walk by each other because there isn't true justice for the victim. That hasn't been all the way thought out. And this is what I think is one of the implications or issues in the situation in Manhattan. We aren't looking at all of the implications. So what about justice for the victim? What about justice for police officers? You think I'm about to wake up every morning and put on this badge and fight you to get in my police car just to know that you're gonna be out in 4 hours because nobody's gonna prosecute you because it was armed robbery, but you didn't shoot nobody? Y'all can have my badge for that. I'm not gonna get up and go to work every day for that. How are we maintaining justice for the people who have to go out every day and fight the criminals? Because I can guarantee you that the grandmother on the block, when her grandson comes in high or trying to steal from her purse and things like that, she's gonna call 911. But he ain't stole nothing. I mean, enough to be prosecuted. And at this point, it's not very clear what is enough to be considered prosecutorial, I guess, if that's a word, but prosecutable. Thanks. The article says that there would need to be like bloodshed or death or bodily harm done. But so now what is the out or the safety? Where's the safety for the grandmother? Where's the safety for the police officer? Because if now, like, as long as if I'm a police officer, I'm not dead, I'm not shot, he just roughed me up real good, is he really gonna get out on that? He doesn't go to jail. There isn't any kind of justice, or Krista said restitution, for the victim. We're continuously living from this place of race-based gosh, what's the word that I'm looking for now? Well, favoritism is a good word, but there's another word that I'm looking for, but it's race-based. So when the narrative of white people in that area becomes black people are dangerous, are we going to look at this objectively and recognize that they feel that way because the crime increased because skin got them a free pass? No one's going to look at that. What's going to happen is that people are going to say, well, why are you so fragile as a white person? Why are you just continuing to criminalize bodies of color? Why are you continuing to stereotype bodies of color? Instead of looking at the data, instead of looking at what's true and what's before us, we're going to go off of experience, or we're going to go off of narrative. So yeah, no, nobody's gonna say that. Let's see what else. This is also frustrating. It is very frustrating because, it's frustrating because instead of calling people to higher standards, what we're saying is that, well, because of your skin color, we're just going to give you a pass. I mean, short of murdering someone, short of, they said sex crimes, they said hate crimes, they said, what was that other word? Terrorists. When I thought that was a very interesting use of the term, because if you notice, part of the conversation with parents who are standing up against critical race theory in public schools, they are being labeled as terrorists. So, and maybe you can put the link to this article, or we can put it in the notes later, or not the notes, but in the
description.
In the description later. But they're being labeled as terrorists. These parents are being labeled as terrorists, and the article specifically talks about terrorists. So it made me immediately wonder, like, I wonder what terrorists you're talking about. Go ahead.
I think about Exodus 23, 1-3. I would encourage people to go read that.
Yeah.
not showing favoritism.
Krista said, read Exodus 23, 1-3 about not showing favoritism. But yeah, I really wish that instead of lowering the bar, and giving people more room to commit criminal acts, people would raise the bar and say, no, this is the standard. This is how we're going to participate with one another, and especially people within the church. Where are the pastors coming out in droves? It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Where are the pastors in Manhattan saying, no, we don't participate this way? No, we don't want this in our community. I don't know. Maybe they are there. But it would be so encouraging to see people coming out in force, to protest this, to say, no, like, you're gonna send our communities down, the toilet hole, because this is not going to lead to anything positive. This is going to lead to more murders. This is good. I mean, did Manhattan not look at Chicago? Did they not look at Baltimore? Did they not look at Philadelphia? Places where these things have been tried, and we see the ramifications of what's happened there. Do not. Oh, okay. All right. Amen. Raise the bar. Nothing ever gets better by lowering the bar or the standards. It's true, it doesn't. But time and time again, when you raise the bar, people actually, I feel like, will rise to meet the occasion. Thieves aren't just stealing from the store, they are stealing from all of us. The excuse that insurance will cover it, but the insurance costs are incorporated in the price of the products we buy. Yes. Nothing's free. Nothing is free. You can't say, well, insurance is going to cover it, because then my insurance premiums are going to be raised. And you want to know where I'm going to get the money to pay for my insurance premiums? I'm going to go and get that money from your pocket. I don't understand why the overarching narrative seems to be Black people are incapable of rising above, so the standard must be lowered. It's all condescending. It is. It's racist. It's just racist, liberal, left mess, in my personal opinion. Not speaking for Krista, but that's what I think it is. I think that it's completely racist. I think that the more we see these policies being passed, the more it just opens the door for chaos. It opens the door for violence. And where do you see these things first happening at? Well, you see that happening in places that are impacted by poverty, that are impacted by drug abuse and things like that. And it's in the inner city. And yeah.
It's also kind of,
you can come over if you want to.
Well, no.
Go ahead.
It's sort of predicated on the idea that poor people aren't capable of being moral. Poor people aren't capable of not stealing.
Okay. So Krista says that it's predicated upon this idea that poor people aren't capable of being moral, or poor people aren't capable of not stealing. And I think that, yes, that's part of it. But one of the things that I think is happening is this idea that we've had slavery, Jim Crow, we've had all these issues within our history and things like that. And now what we're seeing in inner cities is what we always see in inner cities. And it actually doesn't matter the color of skin. And when you go into an inner city, when you go into an impoverished area, that's what it's about. There are certain ills that follow poverty. And so when we look at, a lot of inner city, or a lot of the issues that are happening within Black inner cities, and that directly leads into incarceration. People are just now saying, well, we don't, they've had it so bad already, we can't continue to incarcerate them. There's such a high number of Blacks in jail, that it's not fair to, and to me, it does come down to this thing of like, well, that's not fair. Well, I think that there should be other conversations aside from just like, is this is this fair or not? To me, does it require the time that somebody might be getting? I know that people always say, well, look at the drug laws, and look at how the war on drugs impacted the Black community and things like that. But people don't talk about the fact that it was Black legislators who passed those bills. There was a time, I think, when people within inner cities were tired and fed up of the crack epidemic. They were tired of drugs on the streets and things like that, and they wanted to do something else. They wanted to see something different for their communities. But now we look at what the war on drugs created in a lot of communities, which was a higher arrest record, higher arrest rates, and now we have this disparity. But to fix the disparity, we need to actually look at what's happening within the people, not just let me alter the numbers by not sending people to jail who actually might need to be in jail. All right, let me go on. The next thing I wanted to talk about was this thing I saw on Twitter. I don't even know, where did I get this? Did I get this from you?
No, I don't think so.
No, I got it from Elisa. Elisa Childers sent this to me last night. And it said, well, when I got it, it said, who will evangelize and disciple white Christians? And I was like, well, Lord, here am I, send me. But this guy is really serious. His name is David Swanson. He's a pastor. I'm not sure where he's a pastor at anymore, but he's a pastor, and he has this rant on Twitter talking about, let me actually just read it. We can't ignore the large percentage of white Christians, evangelicals especially, but not only, who don't understand themselves by the historic characteristics of Christianity. They embrace a veneer of faith while identifying most clearly along racial and ideological lines. Then he lists this study about white Christian nationalism. He says that these white Christianized spaces should be understood as largely non-Christian in their beliefs and practices. There are many caveats and exceptions, but we must take seriously what these communities disclose about themselves, especially related to their Christian kin of color. So who will reach white Christians with the gospel? I don't ask this question sarcastically. I'm deadly serious. Who will allow their hearts to be broken by the captivity of so many lost people? One of the problems we face is that these contexts have not been seen as critical and legitimate places for missional work. We viewed them as already Christian, so we send chaplains in instead of missionaries. Okay. So, as I was reading this, I was so confused. I mean, because I just responded as a joke, like, here am I, send me.
Mike
But
Davis says send me too.
yeah, here I am. Yes. Who will be my Black friend? Oh, Kim. But I mean, when taken seriously, I don't know how you take this seriously. Like, do you really think that you are so grand that you can determine if somebody else is saved? Like, just by the color of their skin? I think that there is something to say, um, when we consider like fruit or works. Like, you can't be going out murdering and cussing people out and all that and be like, I'm a Christian, praise Jesus. I only kill on the weekends. No. But I think that if someone says, hey, look, I'm in church, I am being discipled, like I'm walking with the Lord, who are you to come along, Mr. David Swanson, and be like, well, you're in a white space. And yeah, there might be an exception here and there, but by and large, white spaces are not saved. They are not filled with Christian doctrine. They don't walk in the ways of the Lord. Who are you? Like, I was surprised that there was not a ton of pushback on his tweet. There were, a few likes, but I'm at some point, like, when is your own heart convicted? Like, I see, and this is the problem. I think that so many people are so worried about convicting the hearts of white people that they don't worry about the conviction that should be taking place in their own hearts. See, you want to convict and say, well, this person isn't saved and that person isn't saved, and we need to go out and disciple white people, but you might need to get in a conversation with the Lord about your own salvation. You might need to get in the conversation with the Lord about your own discipleship. Do you not know that pride goes before a fall? Like, just how proud or how prideful are you to I would say without warrant, now just deem a whole group of people as being unsaved because of their skin color. Another thing that really got me in this tweet was his use of the term white Christian nationalism or Christian nationalism without any definition as to what that is. But if you saw the family meeting last week, I bet he would say that Christian nationalism is not Maxine Waters going into a Black church talking about the struggle. That's not Christian nationalism because it's done by a Black person. So this pastor of this multiracial megachurch that, he claims he pastors, are you participating with unequal weights and measures? How are you participating in justice? Because, your whole thread is about justice. And then he said how he mentioned like the kin of color and how do we treat people, especially related to our kin of color, our Black brothers and sisters, Hispanic brothers and sisters, whatever. And yet he never truly talks about what is the issue that he thinks people need to be addressing. And this is kind of like the whole thing with Maxine Waters last week, where she just talks about the struggle. We were in the struggle. Well, people will use this rhetoric and say, well, these issues related to people of color, but they never want to tell you what the issues are. They never want to use like true data and say, well, this is what the issue is. But yet from the pulpit, they will stand up in the pulpit and declare that there are all of these issues and that you must renounce your whiteness, divest yourself of your whiteness, read, do the work. So read the books, read White Fragility, post up your Black Lives Matter sign and all these things. But what issues are they talking about? And then one of the last things that I noticed with this article is his use of the word critical. And let me actually see if I can go back and get it really quickly. He says, one of the problems we face is that these contexts have not been seen as critical and legitimate places for missional work. If you look in Fault Lines by Vodi Bakum, he quotes the definition that Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay use in their book, Cynical Theories for critical. And this definition of critical is not like we need to take a necessary look into something. It's that we need to actually go and investigate something through the lens of like problematizing it. We need to look at things and investigate these things in order to create a revolution. And so in his comment, one of the problems we face is that these contexts have not been seen as critical. He's saying that they haven't been seen as being in need of revolution. But what are we revolutionizing? And are we doing this revolutionary work based on a lens of scripture, of historic Christianity? These are the questions that we have to ask, because people will use words like critical. They will use words, even like theory. They will say we need to be doing this work. We need to to cause revolution. We need to usurp the systems and defund and redo all of these things. But by what standard are we doing these things? Based on what? Even if the entire system across the board was racially unjust. When you tell me that we need to, like in the critical race theory book, it says that we need to have revolution. Well, what is the revolution that you propose? Is it based on a biblical framework? Because if it's not based on a biblical framework, all we have is more mess. We're just creating mess on top of mess, and we will never get anywhere. Based on no jail times for crimes. Oh, let me see. Based on no jail times for crimes, obviously. Yeah. Let's see. Critical is the new cynical, like 50 critics of shady. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Oh, Sylvia, thank you for our card. How come I keep missing the meetings? This is what I get for avoiding FB. No. So, you guys, I wanted to highlight this tweet because it's important for us to understand what people are saying, how people are seeing well, for me, and I'll only speak for me. I think one of the things that's important for me is and this is why I started CFBU in the very, very beginnings, was to understand, how are people seeing white brothers and sisters? What is the conversation happening within the church about people who bear skin that's different than mine? There's a lot of conversation about what happens in society to people with skin like mine, but what is happening in the church to people who have skin that is not like mine? Well, apparently y'all need to be discipled. You're not Christians. And that's heartbreaking. Because I think that there are, many reasons why people don't call out Christians of color, because I would say they don't call out Christians of color for fear of being shunned, for fear of being canceled and things like that. But it's okay to now go and we'll say that all white Christians in white spaces are non-Christian, they lack doctrine and all of that. Like, what we need are leaders within the church that will what we need is now would be a good time to post your Venmo link. Stop it. What we need are leaders in the church who are not going to waver either way. I could care less what your color is. You could. Now, if you were glitter, I might have some partiality. But I don't care what your color is. Like, if you're wrong, you're wrong. And this dude is wrong. We don't just say, well, all the black voices are wrong. And I don't say all the white voices are wrong, or all the Latin voices are wrong, or all the Asian American voices are wrong. No, I'm not going to demonize you based on your skin color. Now, I will look at an individual. I can look at a group, a community, and say, well, these people live according to the rules and limits of scripture, or they don't. Vaughn says, standpoint epistemology, black voices are the ones we need to hear. Not surprising that black discipleship wouldn't be far behind. Yes. But where do we find that in the Bible? We don't. Discipleship wasn't based on the color of your skin. Matthew 28:19. Just go read Matthew 28 from 1 to like 20 something, 22. Read Matthew 28 when Jesus sends them out. He doesn't say just, well, you just need to go to the white people. Crenshaw, Race Reform and Retrenchment says a racial consciousness aims to create a crisis to create a new hegemony. Yes. Kevin, what's my cousin talking about? He said,
string.
We submit all of our evangelism and discipleship efforts to ministry leaders of color. Our strategies and methods must reflect the Christian reconciliation and justice we are pursuing. So much wisdom and accountability will open. I don't know what the rest of it says. Will open up as we do. That's not reconciliation or justice. It's not wise. It's preferential treatment. And this is the problem that we have to, be aware of. We have to understand what's happening in the church. I am all for, reforming culture and things like that. But the reality is that for Christians, my first priority is the church. Paul says he has no jurisdiction over culture, but in the church, our 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 mandate comes from Scripture. What we do, how we act, how we participate with one another comes from Scripture. This is why I started out with Ephesians, because Ephesians tells us it's like our rule book, just all concisely put into one. Ephesians tells me how to live with one another. How do I live in community? How do I live with my family? How do I do this? And it starts out by telling me why, because I'm adopted. I don't know David. Somebody know David, giving my email address. I don't know David, but David's out of pocket. He's wrong. He's wrong. And I would challenge David to look into some of his ideas on Black liberation theology, because it's very James Cone-ish to be like, white people ain't saved. James Cone actually says, while white people, what does he say? White people, talking about white people in the church, while white people may be saved, he then goes on and says, like, if there are any to be found, talking about true Christians, white people who could actually be true Christians. His words are, if there are any to be found. He then goes on to say that they should be treated like babies, that they shouldn't be allowed to speak. They can only be accepted within the community when every person of color within the community agrees that they are truly saved and are worthy to be a part of the community. But James Cone didn't think white people was getting saved, especially not in his early years. He might have had a little shift like later on in life, but not in his early years. And this is what this sounds like. The communities of white people aren't really saved. Now, not to be, stirring the pot anymore, but if I were to go and look in a lot of Black churches, what would we see but fornication from the pastor all the way down? A lot of single parents. A lot of out of wedlock foolery. Why do we see churches on every corner in the Black community, and yet in the Black community we have the highest like levels of domestic violence, highest levels of drugs, highest levels of and when I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about like hardcore drugs, highest levels of alcoholism and things like that, when we have the most churches, one on every corner, y'all. So again, I don't see him going and calling out the sin that is present within many groups. It's time for me to go. Just saying, who says we don't want to be discipled by Black people anyways? Anyone ever heard of Augustine of Hippo? As long as the person has sound doctrine. Exactly. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's not about, well, you can disciple me because you're Black, or you can disciple me because you're white. Do you have sound doctrine? Do you have a relationship with the Lord? How is your walk? Black Christian voices must challenge this thing and must be willing to see relationships end rather than see truth trample. Come on, Uncle Terrence. Yes. Come on. Let's see. And if we as Christians live out what we are commanded, the world will see and believe. Well, see, that's the whole thing about our unity. If you read John 17, there's a purpose for our unity. The purpose for our unity is that people would understand that God sent Jesus and that he loves us. So there is a purpose. Reconciliation is rooted in the truth in order to qualify as biblical reconciliation. Yes, our reconciliation is we find our reconciliation, to me, in 2 Corinthians 5:17. Or actually, just look at that whole chapter.
Starting at verse 10.
Don't get me started on toxic Black culture. I know. All right, you guys, it is time to go. saying yes. Because why is it the same in non-Black churches? Because people are gonna people. Sinners are going to sin. That's the reality. But yet when we make sin about skin color first, then this is what we do. We siphon off and we say, well, only the white people or only the Black people. No, sin is sin. And how are we addressing sin from our pulpits? This is the problem. We got to address sin. Book groups start next week, you guys. I'm going to be leading a group through the book Critical Race Theory by Gene Stefanchich and Richard Delgado. Reading While Black. Thank you. Reading While Black is going to be led by the one and only Mr. Kevin Briggins, and Compassion and Conviction is going to be led by the one and only Miss Melissa Palou. So if you have not signed up, you can do so by going to our website and then doing /book clubs and get registered. Classes or discussion groups are limited to 35 people. We do have a little bit of room left in each group. And so get in on that. It's a good way to build connection with others, to have like-minded conversations, or even, to ask questions, to disagree, to learn and to grow together. So that's why we do them. And I'm looking forward to getting in there and doing that. I'm going to do it with, I think I said, with Joe Miller. He's been a guest on our podcast before, the one and only Dr. Joe Miller. He got like 7 doctorates, y'all. So I'm going to be up in there just sitting and getting some good knowledge too. And then Krista's class, God's Person and Word, is already sold out. So if you missed it, then you missed it. We're sorry to tell you that. And then lastly, gosh, what
our class on theology of race is now online.
Yeah, our theology of race class is online, and I think that's it, you guys. I am tired. I need to run to the pharmacy, but I'm grateful to be doing better today. I take it one day at a time, and yeah, one day I'll tell you guys about our 5-week journey of sickness. But I am just thankful for today. I am thankful for all of you, and yeah, because I was sick, we didn't actually get to move into our office yet. So we are hoping to have that done by the middle to end of next week. And I will keep you guys all posted on it. If the Lord says the same, we'll actually do the family meeting next Thursday from our office. All right, you guys, be blessed. Know that you are being prayed for. We are grateful for you, family. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.